Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're doing well out there. This is the program called What's Going On, and we come on at 2 o'clock every Monday from 2 o'clock to 3. And today we're going to be preceding the program called Satori's Black History Corner that comes on at 3:30, and it stays around about 30 minutes. So you'll be treated to that program when this program ends. We're always very glad to have you out there, and we are absolutely delighted that you would spend some time with us as we try to bring you something different here at allpointstv.com. And I'm sure you are staying with us pretty much because we try to do our homework, and when we arrive at the studio, we're pretty much ready to go and ready to bring you something different. Now, I must say, today, we hope, and we have some ambitious plans here, we hope to talk about three topics, and those topics are the announcement of Hillary Clinton running for president, announcement made yesterday, as you know. The situation is happening in the North Charleston, South Carolina, the situation where there was a shooting incident in that particular city, and we want to talk about that for a few minutes. And lastly, I want to talk about a book that I brought to the studio last week. We didn't get around to it, but I'm going to hopefully have enough time today to get around to this book called Whites, Blacks, and Racist Democrats. And I want to talk about this book because it verifies something a conclusion I had made some time ago, but I couldn't find any other validation for it, so I kind of held it close to the vest. I didn't want to come out and say a lot about it without having some validation. I had drawn some different conclusions about the civil rights movement, but I didn't really have the kind of documented validation I needed to make a more concise and a more determinative assessment of this movement. And I can say, having read this book, that almost everybody, and I don't think it's almost everybody, I have not read anybody other than Wayne Perriman, the author of this book, that has come up with the same conclusion that I arrived at once I went back and began to go back over some of the notes I had accumulated over the years about the civil rights movement and some of the books I had read. I thought I'd kind of put this issue to bed, but when I went back and read I was getting ready for the 50th anniversary of the 7th of March because I knew that was coming up. And I went back to do some reading, and I kept saying, wait a minute, this is something that I had overlooked in my initial reading of these books. And when I read it again and began to see what had happened 50 years later, I could see that something was wrong in the analysis that that I had, and certainly others had, about what this movement was designed to do. And I have now concluded, as I will show hopefully before we get off the air in our third topic today, that the conclusions that have been drawn about this movement, what its modus operandi was, what its intentions were, have all been misconstrued. And I'm going to try to put a face on what I think the error was and why the error was made. Some of it was made out of a lack of understanding of the movement. Some of it was made purposefully. And I hope I can dissect how these two energies converge at a certain point. And I'm going to try to make that case before we leave this afternoon. But I want to start out with what I just posted on Facebook. And some of you that are aware that I do this program, and I also am doing I do Facebook every day. And people think I spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I don't really spend a lot of time on Facebook. What I do is I take about 45 minutes to write the article, then I do the proofreading, then I post it. And then later on in the evening, I come back to Facebook to see what the responses are, and I read other people's posts. And I pretty much learn most of what goes on by reading the posts on Facebook, because a lot of people out there that are paying attention to what's going on, they are reading different sites, going into what I do is I go to the Drudge Report and I look at all the listing of the titles of the articles, the titles of articles, and then I go and read the ones that have pricked my interest. But some other persons go on the net and they read other articles, and by the time the day is over, without spending a whole lot of time watching the network news, which I think that's mostly just propaganda anyway, I can pretty much find out what's going on by what persons are posting on Facebook. It's a very good engine of information. So people think since I'm on there all, every day, and I'm posting at some length, I think I probably have the longest articles, the longest narratives that are posted on Facebook. And people think I'm spending all day writing these articles up. And it doesn't take as much time as people think it does. I spend about 45 minutes in writing it, and then about another 5 minutes in proofing, and then I paste it. And then I come back to it later on to see what the responses have been and who I need to respond to, so people will know that I'm reading their responses, so as to make it appear as they do on the television. They try to make it appear you can have a conversation with machines, and they do that by reading the letters we send into them. And the idea is there's a dialogue going on between the viewers and the presenters, when that's not really what's going on, but it gives the illusion that's taking place. But I go back and read it because I do want them to understand we are interacting with each other, and I do value what they write. So let's start off with the announcement yesterday. And the announcement was that Hillary Clinton, as we all knew, is running for the highest office in the land. This will be Hillary Clinton's second time around. And I wonder out there how many of you thought that when the announcement was made, that the heavens opened up and the celestial choirs began to sing. You remember when she said that in 2008 about Barack Obama's campaign? And the celestial choir didn't sing, and the heavens didn't open up there, the clouds didn't part, and we didn't have any announcement that he's the one from up above. And I didn't feel any sensation along that line yesterday when I was watching what really was a video taping of the announcement. And I didn't feel any particular compulsion about we have now been saved by the announcement that was in fact made. What I wrote before I came to the studio, because I did an article on the announcement, what I said in my Facebook post is that I think Hillary Clinton's announcing her candidacy, given all the things that's happening in the last how many years? Last 6 years at least. I'm not even talking about when she was senator as a carpetbagger in New York, where she just decided she's going to run for the Senate seat in New York and never lived there for any period of time, and went in as a carpetbagger and ran after being invited in there by Charles Rangel, and won a seat in a state that we know, New York, on the East Coast, and we had its twin, California, on the West Coast. I mean, it's, two peas out of the same pot. But I'm not even talking about a track record as senator. I mean, there's no record there, quite frankly. She was not that I'm saying you should go in the Senate and start passing all this legislation, but she is she was an unlettered senator and didn't get it. We don't know anything she actually did while she was there. But I'm talking about the brazenness of a campaign, as I wrote in my article before coming to the studio. And I'm talking about the brazenness of the campaign, given the fact that we have more recent memory of her political legacy, and for her to go out there and announce she's running for the presidency after having the track record she had as Secretary of State, I think there's a certain amount of brazenness on her part.
It's a celebration of mediocrity. That's what it is. That's what America's gravity is, celebration of mediocrity. And even the left, even the people on the left have criticism of Hillary Clinton. But they'll line up and vote for her. But they have, I've heard them talk before amongst themselves, and they have problems with her.
I think what's going to happen is that those poll numbers are going to show. I mean, people are really raising some questions out here. And I think what's going to happen is that there are going to be some poll numbers that's going to let some persons that are on the sideline right now see an opportunity. And I'm not so sure that Webb and what's the other person's name? Malley, I think his name is, former governor of Maryland. I don't think that they're going to stay on the sideline if they see that she might be not a lame duck, but a wounded duck, in the sense that she's not the formidable candidate that she was made out to be back in the time period when she was looked at as the consummate candidate. Already the coronation has been made of her being the standard bearer for the Democratic Party. I think there's some problems here with that, and I think those numbers, when those poll numbers come out, I think people are going to see that maybe there's a chance for them to go out there and make this challenge about the nominee. So it's not all that certain. I mean, you could say that the odds are she'll be the nominee, but it's not all that. I mean, it's not like there's not some reason to have the question remain open, and we're going to see what the numbers are, what the poll numbers are. But what I've been reading is that there are a lot of people out there that are raising questions about her credibility. And this last thing that we have, which was, and we need to get an answer to those, because those emails that were sent when she was Secretary of State, we cannot allow the candidate to decide whether or not those emails belong in the purview of the government or not. You can't make that decision. The idea is that with the government, the law, the law is in the books to say that everything that is obtained on the email site during the time that you are in an official capacity representing the government of the United States, the way that process plays out is that the government takes control of the records, and then it determines that which can be expunged or to be placed in a more private quarter. So the government does not necessarily have any control over that, which it has nothing to do with its responsibilities in terms of running this country. And for that not to be the case in the present time period and going toward the campaign 2016, there's got to be an issue. And we've got to have some answers about 31. The last count that I heard of was out of the 62,000 emails that went on during the time she was Secretary of State, those 4 years. 31,000 of them, that's half of the ones that were on the line, 31,000 of them have been excised. And we don't have any, and how do we know that? I mean, I'm willing to take person's word until proven otherwise, but you know, what is that? What do they say about that? Trust but verify. We need to do that with our own government. We need to verify whether or not the ones that have been expunged from the record and those that are, I understand that they have the private server is not going to be made available. But you know, once you put something in the air and it is electronically communicated, they can claim that they can get rid of that. But that fact, the fact you put it on the net in some capacity, that lives forever. It never goes away. So this idea that it's been destroyed and no longer available, that's not true. Because somebody received the emails and somebody hacked the emails, quite frankly, because when you're on an untested site that's unsecured, then other person have access to it. It's out there. But we need to get a handle on that and find out what those communications have in it. I think, quite frankly, to have 31,000, almost half of the emails that were sent during that 4-year period of time, speaks to, and I'm reluctant to say it, but I have to be honest. I think it speaks to what seems to be a cover-up, because I cannot believe all these emails, 31,000 emails, were of no consequence where a person just having, when do you find the time, as busy as you would be as Secretary of State, to be having all these meandering conversations that do not have any significance and substance to them? I mean, when do you have time for that?
I'd like to know this. If you and I were indicted on charges, would they let us have access to our information, our records, the very things that they're looking for as long as they allowed her to have them to, have access
It wouldn't
to?
happen, Johnny.
No. They'd swarm your house, beat the hell out of your, they'd shoot your family dog, they'd kill your uncle, they'd kill everybody in the family, grab your stuff,
Yeah.
and make sure they had a case against you.
Yeah.
Well, this is high crimes and misdemeanors, or to high crimes at least, or felonies or whatever, potentially. No, they let her control the evidence.
It's unbelievable. John, they will look at your bank records, and they have a law that will not allow the persons who are aware they're looking at your records to inform you of that. So this is really above that level. And for a person to have gotten rid of documents, the government doesn't know whether those documents belong to within the purview of the government or not. For those documents to be unavailable, if it's not it does not violate the law. It certainly violates the spirit of the law, and whether or not it violates the law itself, that remains to be seen, based upon the evidence that's uncovered in whatever investigatory body looks into it. But we need to have some answers. This woman's running for president of the United States. We need to have all persons running for this office at this late date, given the problems we have in this country. We need to have clean hands going into the White House. Let me tell you what I said on my post today, given the announcement of Ms. Clinton running for the presidency, that I hope it will not be another example of us getting into this symbolism without substance, because that's a mistake we made with President Obama. We hadn't had, according to the official way of looking at the presidency, a black president before. So then the idea was, let's get a black president and change the complexion of the office, the person in the office. Let's be diverse. Let's be open. Let's be American about it. And that means that we are open and we are diverse, sometimes to our own detriment. So without it, I don't think a white person could have been elected in 2008 with Obama's resume, and to have given him a chance to show what he could do speaks on the one hand to the greatness of America, but it also speaks at the same time on the other hand to the weakness of the country, because sometimes your strength is your weakness. And it was the idea that America wanted to be fair and open and show that it was not the country everybody was saying it was, didn't carry the racial baggage that everybody was saying it carries. And they were willing to take a chance, even to the extent of going from the absurd to the ridiculous, because he didn't have any resume. I mean, he was president a lot of the times and votes in Chicago, so that shows me he had his mind on a future office, because he does have some gifts, basically in the area of his oratorical skills. Didn't have any skills as far as getting anything done politically, or doesn't do anything that shows an understanding of the constitutional restraints, or he doesn't at least respect the restraints placed upon him as an office holder of the highest office in the land. So that's not a strength that he has. And there's nothing that he's shown as far as his political acumen in terms of the ability to work with anyone else in government. Hasn't shown any particular skills in that area, and so leadership skills are not there. Because leadership is being able to have a point of view and have a vision, and then to bring other people in your vision by convincing them that your vision trumps whatever vision they may have out there in the places where they are, in the Congress, for example, or with people of influence that are in the business community. But we've not seen that. But he does have an oratorical skill. He's a rhetorician, and that's a gift that he has. And I think he was looking, forward In fact, I know he's looking forward because I read his books, and I know that when he lost in running for the position against this former Black Panther Party member, Bobby Rush, who was part of the Black Panthers back in the time when you had Mark Clark and Mark Clark was one, and Fred Hampton. The two Panthers were killed December the 4th, 1969. He was a part of that group, and he survived those moments of when he was, out there espousing all this militant rhetoric. He's now in the House of Representatives, where Obama opposed him before he ran for the Senate seat. And if he had lost the Senate seat, his career would have been over. But he lost to Bobby Rush, and he then became more ambitious. He went to this one person that's in the state legislature in Illinois, and told him that he could make kings. And the person said to him that could make kings, and he said yes, and you could make a senator. And the guy said, and who would that be? And he said, it would be me. And he said he ran for senator. And everybody was kind of biting their nails and very nervous about it, because if he lost 2 seats in a row, his career would have been over. And he would not have won that seat if Mike Dicker, the former manager, the former coach for the Chicago Bears, if he had run, he wouldn't have gotten that seat, because he would have gotten defeated by Mike Dicker. But what happened there was that they brought Alan Keyes in from outside the state, and he came in as a carpetbagger, trying to act like he was not a carpetbagger, criticizing Hillary Clinton for having done the same thing in New York, acting like he wasn't doing the same thing in Illinois, and he wasn't able to get any traction, and that explains how Obama got there. My point is just that the country showed its openness to difference, and that's how Obama got the presidency. I don't think he would have been president if he had been white, because if he had not been declared white, because you need more resume than that. But America is fundamentally fair, much more fair than people give it credit for. And he was able to ride a couple of crest waves, some of it which was a certain amount of forgiveness and overlooking some of his records, some of the things that were unbelievable to overlook, but overlooked anyway because the person wanted to give him a chance. And that was our strength, but it's also our weakness as well, as we now see 6 years later. And it's playing out that way. The point is that we don't need, we don't need more symbolism. And already I see some evidence of it based upon the fact that once Hillary Clinton yesterday announced her candidacy, this morning CNN had a news article on the net, and it was talking about the glass ceiling. And I think we got 2 fantasies here. One is Lionel Richie's fantasy, people dancing on the ceiling. I've never seen it. And now we got a glass ceiling, and I don't see that either. I mean, where is there a glass ceiling? I mean, the idea is that you go up only so high, and then you're blocked. No matter what your skills are, you're blocked. And that's the narrative that CNN was running with this morning, as they were putting out there that we got one found glass ceiling to break through, and it's at the highest level of the country. I guess, and this is what I said in my post. I guess what that means is that 40 some odd girly men don't equal one female. We've had, I mean, if it's about gender, then we need to do the same thing in terms of anatomy as we need to do with global warming, and that is to put it over there in the political science department. Because if politics is now about anatomy, then we're talking about anatomy as political science. I mean, we got see this. This is another appeal to America. And I have some news here because was it Sunday or was it Saturday? I was writing posts on Facebook, and I was in the post. I said I finally got a chance to challenge Shelby Steele's book. It's called White Guilt: How Blacks and Whites Together Destroyed the Promises of the Civil Rights Era. And I had been waiting for an opportunity to come in and challenge Shelby Steele on his title, because Shelby Steele made the same mistake that I made. I made the same mistake he made it, or vice versa. I understand the mistake now because I read this book, and I also had some other things that I put together before I read it. But it put everything together once I read this book. But I put some things together on my own, having gone back over the civil rights movement and gone over some other things that were going on in the present time period. And I thought it was white guilt. But I had to continue to think about that in terms of why would a person living right now be guilty of anything that happened before they were born. And I could not, after a while looking at that, think that was really the deal. I understand everybody was saying it was a deal, but that didn't make any sense to me. After a while, I began to see what really was there. And I tell you who helped me to see it more clearly, and that was Jared Taylor, who is the author of the book called Pay with Good Intentions, but not in that book, but just one of the things he did on one of his videos I saw on YouTube, in a lecture that he did. And he went in and he went back into the history of the country and some of the things that about the civilization, the Western civilization and things like that. And what he said was clicked in my mind. It put all the pieces. I had all these pieces of the puzzle over here kind of, they were not tethered. What Jared Taylor did for me was to take these pieces that were out here on my table, so to speak, scattered around, and I'm trying to put it together to what all of it means, because it was a lot of different corridors that you had to go into to find out and extract meaning, and then place it over here and patch it together with this, and there's a larger meaning, and then over here there's more of it. And I had to do that, and it all concretized in listening to Jared Taylor, because I had a lot of respect for him already, and I hit his video, and having already read him, I knew that he was a person of substance, so I wanted to listen to what he had to say on the video. And when I listened to that one video, out of a number that I listened to, then that was it. And what Jared Taylor pointed out is that he didn't say it was not white guilt. He just simply made it clear that the appeal is to, and I said it in another way on even before that though, but I didn't say it in these terms. I said it's the fundamental fairness of the American people. But what Jared Taylor helped me see is that the appeal is to white culture. And that knocked my socks off.
I agree with that, because another thing is too, I think I made the point several times to other people, like after the Second World War ended, India was going for its independence, under Gandhi's, basically his leadership. And you couldn't have, basically, if any other country was so really, really intent on keeping control of the colony, because it was a lucrative thing to do, let's face it, if there is no sense of right and wrong that you're appealing to, that you're dealing with the person who's dominating your country, you have to appeal to something. Otherwise, it's just be a force of arms, where they are too disorganized in India. There's too many pockets of different groups who are going to fight against each other. They wouldn't have been able to organize that. They had an appeal to the very people who they're trying to overthrow. They had to make a moral argument. There was a morality in place that was based upon. If the English weren't not people who were embarrassable, that would have been embarrassment to try to retain that after what they just fought off, in Europe. That's what it was. It was all based upon guilt and upon, not guilt, but upon obligation, I would say, but the potential to avoid guilt. So let's face it, when you're dealing with sociopaths or psychopaths, you can sit there and plead. Charles Manson would not listen to a person saying, "Why are you doing this to me?" as his followers stuck a knife into him. Okay, I mean, you had to dealing with people who had a moral center, and that's the thing. Is the very thing the liberals don't have. they don't have a moral center.
Yeah.
They change. I mean, oh yeah, we did it once this way, but now we're going to do it this way just for the novelty, for kicks and giggles.
Yeah.
That's what's weird about the liberals. There's no
One-
moral center on them.
There's no moral center, and one of the things you'll notice in the West, we would not be doing what I see them doing over there in Iraq. I just saw this morning on another news report, and that was that ISIS. John, did you see this over in Iraq? ISIS is playing soccer with those decapitated heads that they have. These people that they decapitated.
Yeah, that's basically that's the roots of polo, though. I think I told you that before.
Yeah.
That's polo. That's where they did before. When they're on horseback, they used to cut people's heads off and they used to bat them around with sticks. So I mean, they're going back to that. That's the most brutal form of polo, the original form of it. But I don't know what they call it back then. I don't think it was polo. But yeah,
Wow.
but I mean, it's like you're not dealing with people who are what we consider normal functioning people.
This is something different. In all of our lifetimes, we have not seen this kind of barbarism. I read Thomas Sowell's book called, not Sowell's book, Sheikh Anta Diop's book called Civilization of Barbarism. He wasn't talking about anything like this. And when Thomas Sowell wrote his book called Barbarians Inside the Gates, he wasn't talking about anything like we're seeing over here, looking over at the Middle East and in Iraq and where ISIS is located. We're not talking about that kind of barbarism. We're just talking about the barbarism that you bring into the world when you're born, because every generation brings into the world barbarism, and that's what you have to do. What you're doing there is you're bringing the next generation of people that are born barbaric into civilization, because we are born as children into barbarism. We're not socialized to get along with anybody. In fact, when a child cries, you can hear that in a child cry. He doesn't care who he disturbs. As long he takes a, you don't hear anything for a while because he's building his lung capacity up to express his dissatisfaction with the whole world. He wants the whole world to see it.
Like somebody called babies one time, and I thought it was a fitting. And I told a woman who was pregnant, she cracked up, but she told me months later it was appropriate after she had her child. I said, kids are hairless, toothless tyrants. That's what they are. I mean, they just want their way.
Yeah.
And they appeal to the mom and dad. Let's face it, there's like programming going on.
Yeah.
The moral obligation
Sure.
top of that. But you just feel like the oxytocin bonds the mother with the child.
Yes.
That she will sacrifice her sleep, her sanity to keep this kid going. But yeah, I mean, and the child is a tyrant, though.
Yeah, and that's why you never want more than one generation away from going back into barbarism. But we have never seen. I think the Nazis can't be even compared to these people, because we didn't see this kind of thing going on with the Nazis. I mean, the Nazis tried. They had to go in there after World War II was over and investigate Auschwitz, and to go and see what the carnage looked like when the war came to a close. They had to go and do an investigation. You don't have to investigate too much of what's going on over there with ISIS. They're letting you know it through their propaganda. They're very proud of what they're doing.
Well, Obama's going to basically dismiss all this, though, on ISIS. It's growing pains. I mean, remember, 1,000 years ago, get off your high horse, Christians, 1,000 years ago, you guys are doing this. So basically, I guess ISIS and all these radical groups are just going through growing pains. That's all it is. They're going through an angry adolescent phase, according to Obama,
Well, one thing about the president is that they cannot blame this on workplace violence, because they've already admitted in the State Department and in this administration, they don't have any jobs. And they were talking a couple of weeks ago about, I couldn't believe that they would come out with this, but this is the kind of mentality that we have in place right now in the administration. And they were talking about that if they were employed, they changed their mind about jihad, that we would have a more humane expression of radical Islam if they just simply had jobs. And the problem is their lack of employment. Now, we know that narrative is not true, but that's what they're saying. But they can't say that in this case, because if it's a matter of the fact that they are not employed, and that would change it. Well, let's go first of all to workplace violence. Okay, then they're not working. So it's not workplace violence. This is not just so the violence out there without it being in the workplace. But in terms of the poverty issue, they had another report that came out that showed these persons that are actually involved in these jihadist movements are coming from these middle-class families, and these persons are people of money. Look at bin Laden is a good example of that. Bin Laden was a millionaire, and his family background was one of the higher upper class in Saudi Arabia.
Well, they're billionaires, not just millionaires. They're billionaires.
That's right, billionaires. So so a lot of these excuses we make because we don't want to. A lot of things are going on is why we don't want to confront the reality. Some of it is denial, but some of it is in fact some other things, and we're going to have to figure out what the other things are. I have some ideas about it, but we'll continue to look at it and to see if anybody will call the question. But there's some problems here.
Isn't it kind of weird? The very same party in this country will say, you know, we want to remove, their intention is trying to move people away from the idea of work. Basically, everybody's just depending upon the state to take care of their basic needs, health care, welfare, education, food, clothing, shelter, everything, take care of the state. That's where they're heading for. Mm-hmm. But then they're saying, well, the reason why they're doing this for is because they're lacking their jobs. So guess what? You're saying you want to invite that kind of horrific activity and behavior into our country by not allowing people to work. Because I do take seriously that adage that was in the book Candide by Voltaire: labor keeps at bay three great evils, boredom, vice, and need. Well, so on one hand they're saying, you know, don't worry about jobs here. We don't need job creation here. That's, you know, that we're doing the transitory stage. We're going to something greater. But that's the reason why they're doing this, because their bad stuff's happening, all that stuff, because they don't have jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, they speak out of both sides of their mouth.
Yeah, they do speak out of both sides of their mouth. There are two impulses that that are there, and we talk about one of them. It is right to say that an idle mind is the devil's workshop, but at the same time, a man that is involved in devilment is not an idle mind. It's a mind that is actively pursuing an objective, and that objective may have a bad outcome. But they're not idle. ISIS is not idle. They're on the move, and the rest of the world is in denial about the threat that ISIS poses because they have a focus. And if you think you're going to go over there and give them a job, they got a job. May not be the kind of job we like them to have in terms of going to work 9 to 5, getting a paycheck, and being at peace with those who are their neighbors. They're not doing that kind of work, but they're involved in a job, and their job is jihad. And the West can continue to act like it doesn't know it, and they're going to employ these people, and they're going to lay down their weapons. You can forget that. And that's not going to happen. As it relates to Hillary Clinton, who I said has already disqualified herself based upon her tenure as Secretary of State, and this not only as it relates to those emails that are missing, but her whole tenure as the Secretary of State, where she was unheralded as Secretary of State. There were no accomplishments of this administration, and I don't know, John, if you've seen when they had persons on there trying to pick up the standing of Hillary Clinton, trying to make it appear that she is a much more profound candidate than she actually is and will make a good president. They've been, people have asked on radio programs and television shows, they've asked the person defending her to name one accomplishment. And they start hewing and hawing and can't name anything. And they say, well, you know, she's not president yet. But he said, but just name one thing she's done in her dual role as senator from New York or her role as the Secretary of State. Just name one accomplishment that she has obtained. One thing she's achieved during her tenure in either of those positions.
She's avoided prison. Isn't that accomplishment?
and there's nothing that they could name, and I understand why. What you can talk about is that she tried to put a person, and did in fact help put a person in prison for blaming this person that took put a video on the net. Nobody has seen it. I haven't seen it even to this day, and I know that that wasn't what sparked the uprising in Benghazi. What sparked the uprising in Benghazi was that they took Gaddafi out of there. That's that's what caused it. The Obama administration caused Benghazi because Benghazi didn't happen on Gaddafi's watch.
I remember talking to these intellectuals around college campuses when Obama was running, and they were saying, the thing is, we've got an unusual opportunity now with Obama. He's lived in other countries for years, so he knows what the ugly American is, so he knows how to adjust our foreign policy to make it more viable and to actually make... I don't see a foreign policy at all from the Obama administration.
No.
That's actually discernible, articulable, or desirable.
The only, well, desirable is the point. We do see a foreign policy, that is to make footsie with our enemies and then bash our allies. I mean, this president is much more comfortable, as one person said last week on one of the talk shows, that this president is much more comfortable in talking to the tyrants of the world. I mean, he doesn't seem to have a problem talking to the mullahs and also to the Castros down there in Cuba.
Okay, and now let's face it. Richard Nixon was considered to be an evil man by the Democrats. But Castro put people in death camps, butchered people, political opposition. They're fine with that. I mean, it's like they're always good with people who do horrific things, and they just turn a blind eye towards them. But if you just, okay, they hate people who don't want to make gay wedding cakes, but it's okay with ISIS to kill gays. I don't understand that. It's an outrage not to make a gay wedding cake for a gay couple, or whatever, a gay couple. Yeah. But they're okay with dealing with a group that will kill you if you're gay. So I don't understand I can't say schizophrenic. They're just stupid. I mean, it's just they're willing to accept one. They've got a double standard. It's not even palatable, you know.
They have a double standard, and the double standard is that when they are dealing with the left, then they look at the ends. They don't look at the means. And when they're dealing with the right, they disagree with the ends, and they criticize the means to get there. And the double standard is that they do not care about the means if the left is trying to achieve an end that they agree with, and that's why the left and these persons in these tyrannical countries are overlooked. I mean, they're trying to make Michael Moore's trying to act like Fidel Castro was a hero. We know the carnage, we know the blood, we know what the revolution in '59 brought to bear upon the Cuban people. We know the misery indexes in Cuba. They wouldn't overlook all of that because there's this socialist objective that he's trying to arrive at, and all the blood that goes down the road toward the end result, they're willing to overlook that. They're not willing to do that in terms of how they look at the conservative movement. But there's no morality over there, and you're not going to be able to find anyone over there that's going to have an even hand in how they view that issue or view the issues of the world. I've given up on the psychobabble on the left and have no confidence it's going to ever change. What we got to do is get some understanding of what needs to be done in the face of these persons on the left, and not expect to be able to convert them. This idea, I mean, it's just like, for example, I'll give you a good example of that in terms of these persons now announcing for the presidency, since we're talking about Hillary Clinton. You look at people like Rand Paul. He went to Howard University to speak to, Howard University, predominantly black school, and he went there to Howard University. He's going to show his outreach into the crevices where the Democrats are in the political arena, and he's going to go over here and he's going to pull them out and he's going to try to bring them over here, show that the Republican Party is open to their presence and all of that. And I'll tell you this, so much waste of time. Let me tell you something. Can you give them the Christmas presents that the Democratic Party gives to them? Are you willing to become Democrats, in other words? Because all that outreach stuff is about what are you giving in the name of what are you going to take from taxpayers and give it over to someone else to whom it does not belong? If you play that game, then you cease being Republicans. Because the principle of the Republican Party is that it has been, up until the time it's been trying to become part of the Democratic Party, is that you have to create opportunity out of which everyone can carve out his or her own destiny, and not to rely upon those who have gone for the goal and have seized the time and seized the moment, and they're making a way out of no way based on their own efforts and getting rewards based upon the risk that they take. Well, what these persons are asking for, and you're trying to woo them over here to another arena, they are voting for Santa Claus and going over there making an appeal and don't understand the nature of the reason why they're over there, because they're over there in the part of the Klan. And that's inconsequential if the party is no longer acting like the Klan, but is in fact giving them stuff that they don't have to, that in which there is no merit.
I think having no expectations of people to do something on their own is almost like it is a form of like being kind of hostile to them. I mean, you're not
Of
hostile,
course.
but contemptuous of them. You're
Yes.
contemptuous. If you don't expect them to be able to do anything for themselves, you're saying that they're mentally deficient.
It's outright
That's what it
contempt.
is. It's a contempt.
It's outright contempt, and you can see the result of what it produces by the appearance of those whom they quote unquote are giving this material support. And what are they supporting? They're supporting a lesser quality of life because government can't make you wealthy. And they're holding persons who have tremendous skills to offer. They can advantage the society and advantage themselves, holding them in check by sabotaging their own efforts. They're not helping these people. They are colonizing these people. And giving people a check and then holding them in check is not a benefit, because there's no money you can pay for having removed the person from his own personhood, where he doesn't advantage himself because he doesn't put forward any effort to advantage himself. He is in fact a victim of others who are exploiting him, based upon making it appear they're helping him when they're really holding him in place and using him as a voting stock, voting cattle. And they can't see it because, the people like being given stuff. They like to be given stuff that belongs to somebody else. And nobody complains about that. But look, at what cost? Nobody raised the question, at what cost? What cost? What does that cost? That's a heavy cost, that you're frozen in place and frozen in time, and 10 years from now you're going to be the same person as far as productivity that you were 10 years before. Every day I get up, I'm trying to find some other way to be more productive than I was the day before. And that's what makes life so exciting to live. You live for the next day because you know that it's going to bring new opportunities to show how great you can be. Because we've not found our own strength yet. And you'll never find, Whitney Houston talking about you never know your own strength. I've seen mothers pick cars up. Babies were under the car and mothers picked it up. She didn't know that she could do that. You never know your own strength. And what they're doing is taking that strength and they're locking it down so that they don't do anything. And then because they don't do anything, they think they can't do anything. And they give you a check, but at what price does that check come with? The check doesn't pay for your personhood. And there's no amount of money they can pay for that. But that's the going rate there. And you can go over there all you want to, and these candidates, talking about announcing for the candidacy, you can go over there all you want to and try to woo people over to away from a candy store, but unless you have a bigger candy store, they're not moving. And you can forget that. What needs to happen is the nation's principles need to be maintained. I'll tell you what I said with Hillary Clinton running. I said this in my post this morning, is that I don't want to hear any candidate talking about their vision because they're just wasting your time. The vision is the framers have already put the vision out there.
That's telling statement right there. I heard Clinton back when his term, Bill Clinton. Mm-hmm. My vision for America. Well, you know what? You're not supposed to be a visionary. Actually, a president is supposed to be a good administrator.
Yeah.
Executive. That's it. That's all they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to be the heroic, cult hero type of person. They're not.
John,
they're supposed to be very boring. You should barely notice them on the radar. That's the way they should run government.
That's true. And it was intended that way. It's a facade. The idea that we have to vote in somebody who has a vision It's that vision that has us in trouble right now. What we need are people who are going into government who themselves are not outlaws. People who go into government and will not be lawbreakers. Because the vision is in our Constitution. We just need people to take the frame that's put there by the framers and will follow the frame already in place. You know why? Because let's be honest here. John, let's be honest here. There are no people on the scene right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in terms of some of the ones that you see out there that I've not yet paid a lot of attention to, but I think I've seen most of the landscape out there politically. We don't have anybody on the scene right now that can match John Jay, Alexander Hamilton, and James Madison. So the vision is already out there by people greater than anybody that's running in the presidency right now.
But John,
I don't care about your vision.
But John Jay was, let's face it, he faced the ire of people. At one time, they actually burned him in effigy because they didn't like and let's face it, he redeemed himself later, but he did make it a treaty that I guess wasn't favorable. But I mean, let's face it, they faced criticism, so they weren't perfect.
Right.
We're not even, see, that's the thing liberals will say is like, you expect perfection. No, but I expect them to follow the confines, the parameters of the Constitution.
That's what they have to follow. That's the vision. And John Jay was one of the ones that wrote I think he wrote 8 of them. I think that 29 were written by Madison. Most of them were written by this genius, Alexander Hamilton. And I'm reading Hamilton right now in this book by Ron Chernow, and I can tell you right now that this guy was an absolute genius. I mean, you think about him, boy, and think about George Washington in the first administration. Washington was great because of his handling of his role in terms of how he handled power. But the man behind the administration, he had two mentalists in there. He had Alexander Hamilton in the Secretary of Treasury. There could have been no better person in that role there. Then he had, as a Secretary of State, he had Thomas Jefferson. You're not doing too badly there either. But this idea that they're going to tell us about their vision, I'm going to tell you right now before you get out of the block, if you're talking to George Walsh trying to get his vote, if I hear you even talking about your vision, I'm voting against you. Because I don't want to hear your vision. Your vision is what we see in Washington right now.
You picked up right what I did last time. During the election cycle, when Obama first ran, I was like, I don't want your vision. I don't want your vision. I want my own vision. You operate the government to allow everybody to pursue their own visions or create their own visions.
Right.
But the only people I actually knew who had visions when I was growing up were people who were dropping acid and doing mushrooms. So I mean, I don't know if I'd want to have them real, and let's face it, Bill Clinton did all that stuff, so I don't think I want his vision out there being manifested in my country,
John, these people are one person just like you and I are. What makes them think that their vision, one person can trump the vision of all the people out here, and it's like Jonathan Gruber from MIT. Look at his vision. And he's going to, as part of the elite, going to give us his vision. He's out here giving us Obamacare. And how is that working out for the country? We don't want that vision. We want the vision that's given to us by the framers.
It's driven up costs. I mean, and let's face it, shut off a lot of people. I mean, I don't understand these people who have, like they say, where they have the college degrees, where they went to Harvard, Yale. If I were saying, if looking at what the country's at now and where we used to be, I'm saying we should probably go to a better pool of people to draw from. I mean, those aren't the brightest and the shiniest and the cream to the crop and all that. They're not.
There's no evidence of it in Washington, D.C. That if they were, it's like John McCain announced last week. John McCain is running for a 6th term as the senator from Arizona. When they asked him why was he running again, because the guy is 78 years old right now, and they were asking him, he'll be 80 years old when he's running for the 6th term. And when they asked him why was he running again, he said that because the world is in such turmoil right now, that there's a need for him to run because there's so much turmoil in the world. So John, who has been there for 5 terms, running for a 6th term, and we've seen nothing get better as a result of it. It's going to make it better during his 6th term. The other 5 don't count. But for them to even say things like that as if the world can't do without them, it's funny. We did without them before they were born, and we're going to do without them after they leave. And if it's a matter of them having some presence that we can't do without, then how are we going to do without them once they stop running? And so, there's all this jargon, right? Their vision. I don't care about their vision. Give us the vision of the framers. The framers were the ones that put the vision in place here. This is the construction that they came up with, something that the world had never seen before. And we followed that which was framed, which made this country great. That's what we need. We need to have people who are not lawbreakers. We don't need a vision. We got a vision in place already. And the vision is in the two documents that should govern this country. The Declaration of Independence, there's a vision there. All men are created equal, that they're born with certain unalienable rights, among which, and they listed them, life, you have the right to your life, which means you have the right not to make a cake if you don't want to. You have the right to liberty, and that also means that if you want to make a cake, you can do that as well. You have the liberty to do that. Nobody should compel you to do either one of them. And the pursuit of happiness, which was changed from the pursuit of, from the right to own property. And I think they should have left property in there. Maybe should have had a fourth listing, because the right to have property is the basis of all the other rights. I mean, in terms of how government will be able to see it. If you don't have property rights, you don't have individual rights. But for them to talk about their vision, I tell you, if I hear a politician talk about that, I don't care what part of the end. If I hear any politician telling me about their vision, I'm voting against them just based upon that. Because that tells me something about the brazenness of the politician who would claim that he has some vision. And where would it come from? I mean, is that from the mountaintop? Is that Mount Sinai again? I mean, what is that? Nobody should care about their vision. We want these politicians to understand when you go in there, there's a frame already in place when you arrive, and your job is to take that frame in the Constitution and follow it to the letter of the law and stop violating the Constitution, acting like your ideas are better than the ideas laid down by the founding fathers of this country. Because we don't have John Jay, we don't have James Madison, and we don't have Alexander Hamilton. And if we take even somebody is I think some of the persons are very smart. I think that Tom Coburn was very smart. I think Ron Paul was very smart, and I think Ted Cruz is pretty smart. But they start telling me about their vision, I'm voting against them, just based upon that, because that lets me see into a window of their mind, a corner of their consciousness. You talk about their vision. I don't want anybody telling me about their vision. I want them to tell me about following the Constitution of the United States. That's the vision right there. And the problem is nobody's following the Constitution. The vision was we would have limited government. That's the vision. And it's amazing to me when I read the Constitution and just try to look at what the insights were that it offers about the mindset of the framers. They tried their best. They tried their darnest to make sure they listed what the government could do and what it could not do. They tried to restrain power horizontally. They tried to restrain power vertically. They put some power in the federal government, put some in the states. They told which parts of it was in this part of the government. That part of it that was therefore left to the states, to the people they're in. They tried everything they could to make government responsive to the commands of the Constitution, and they have not been able to do it. And when I hear people like Jonathan Turley over there at this American University, he's out of his mind, talking about we've now reached a constitutional tipping point. You have to be crazy to say stuff like that. I mean, these are scholars saying that. We're at a constitutional tipping point. And this man is a constitutional scholar, and he says that we need to correct the things that become unbalanced during this administration, because if it's allowed to stand in Obama leaves office, then that's going to be in perpetuity the way this country operates. He has to be insane. The Constitution of this country has been overthrown. It is what Judge Napolitano says. Judge Napolitano says the Constitution is in exile in this country, and it has no standing in Washington right now. So as this campaign goes forward, Ms. Clinton, you announced yesterday you're running for president, and we'll be watching your campaign along with the others. But the standard for this campaign has got to be at this late hour that we're going to have to get behind the Constitution as the vision of the country, and anyone who does not have that vision does not belong in the highest office in the land. Okay, we didn't get to our other topics. We'll do that next week. But until next week, we want you, as always, to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.